Hello, this is Congressman Wally Herger. Thank you for visiting my website for the second of a three-part series about our nation's debt crisis. We first discussed the magnitude of the debt and its major causes. Now we'll explore how the debt crisis is having a detrimental impact on job creation in our nation. Immediately after taking office, President Obama implemented a massive increase in federal spending in an attempt to create jobs and boost our economy. However, this graph shows that the number of Americans working in the private sector went down considerably, even as the hundreds of billions in stimulus spending were distributed. The administration predicted that the spending package would keep the national unemployment rate under 8%. Unfortunately, it reached over 10% just months after the president's plan became law, and it still hovers around 9%. The failure of the so-called stimulus demonstrated that higher government spending does not strengthen long-term employment. As you can see here, our nation's current level of debt relative to the size of our economy is already above the historic average and is about to skyrocket. Independent economists have found that the escalating debt seriously weakens economic growth. Further, they found that our nation's current debt burden could already be reducing economic growth by a full percentage point. Not surprisingly, an underperforming economy results in a sharp reduction in jobs. Under the Obama administration's own analysis, the loss of 1 percentage point in economic growth costs our nation 1 million badly needed jobs. Economic growth and job creation will only further decline as our debt reaches new heights. Some in Washington are calling for even higher taxes to lower our debt and create a foundation for job creation. But this graph shows that American households are paying taxes at about the historic average, even though revenues have temporarily declined after millions of Americans lost their jobs during the recession and remain out of work. The simple fact is that our escalating debt crisis is the result of Washington's spending problem, not because taxes are too low. There's another reason that Congress shouldn't raise taxes. Respected economists have looked at several countries that have tried to reduce their debt and found that raising taxes does not work and can also undermine economic growth. This chart indicates that the debt reduction efforts that are successful are centered on cutting spending, not raising taxes. I believe the tax burden on the American people is large enough as it is, and that Washington should tighten its budget belt at every possible opportunity. Taking bold action to cut spending now will reduce the debt and help small businesses create jobs. I served on the Budget Committee when our nation experienced 4 consecutive balanced budgets in the late 1990s and saw firsthand that they were the direct result of spending restraint in a growing economy. House Republicans recently introduced our fiscal year 2012 budget resolution, which calls for massive spending cuts and proposes common sense solutions to restore fiscal sanity in our nation's capital. In the final presentation, I will share how this budget would stop the debt crisis, create jobs, and set our nation on the path to long-term prosperity.